Let's cut the bullshit. We've got straight up marketing advice. You should use it.
Just drop the job.
Adam and Simon's Bullshit Busters.
Hey everybody, and welcome to the next episode of Adam and Simon Bullshit Busters. My name is Simon Batchelor.
I am Adam Bastock.
And this week we are talking about the end of the tracking economy and the removal of cookies. So this is, on the face of it, quite a technical topic, but actually one that impacts, I think, a lot more people than they realise. Mm-hmm. And I think it might go some way to explaining quite a lot of the things that you experience online and just have no idea how they work. So Adam, cookies. What is cookies?
Yes, what is cookies, aside from the obvious delicious snack? So they're essentially tiny pieces of data that are dropped onto your PC at the base of it, in theory, improve your user experience. So, for example, if you log into an app online and then next time you go away and then 2 days later you come back to that online session, that the cookie is what keeps you logged into that and will save your basket or save the information that you've entered into that. So that can fundamentally be quite a helpful and positive thing. However, the downside is they also can be quite annoying. So the example that we were discussing just before was the idea of like a pair of yellow wellies that maybe you've looked at once on Next, and either maybe you've bought them, but then Google does not think you've bought them, and therefore you'll be retargeted them to the end of time, no matter what you try and do to get rid of it. So that's the kind of the two experiences of, like, one hand you can be just logged in and it's quite nice and it's convenient. On the other hand, it's then quite aggressive, and that's where they've come under a lot of fire. Is that based on your user behavior and your historical web usage, Facebook and Google and other people will be able to analyze that and see, anonymized, but still fairly accurately, see what you've looked at and what you haven't looked at, and then provide adverts as a result of that. So, yeah, that is what my interpretation of cookies is. Would you say that's broadly correct? Before in case it's wrong?
Yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I think essentially the things like Facebook and Google and many other platforms, it's not just those two, just dump these files onto your computer, and then at times in the future we'll just pick up that file again and say, you've been here before. Mm-hmm. It's used quite a lot with dynamic pricing in the hotel and flights industry. If you've ever noticed that every time you go back to look at a flight, it's more expensive, that's not a coincidence. That's because they know that you're coming back, so you're still keen to buy, so the price goes up. There's many other factors in play, which we won't get into, but cookies are a element of that.
Yeah.
So as such, regulators, especially in the European Union, have decided that actually cookies are not cool anymore. And they have started to legislate against their usage. So unusually for the technology industry, they have decided to get ahead of the EU making this use of cookies illegal. Google is currently facing some enormous, eye-wateringly large fines, which it's going to be looking fairly likely like they might actually have to pay this time. And those all relate to illegal tracking, price fixing, and monopolization of search results and their monopoly. Mm-hmm. Again, won't get too much into it, but essentially, because cookies are going to be made illegal in the not too distant future, Google have actively said, right, we're actually going to stop using them before the deadline. So they've decided that they're going to change the way that they record user activity, and they're going to make it even more anonymized, and it's not going to be on a per user basis. They're going to flip to what they call cohorts, so just big groups of people. So people who like wellies, rather than Adam who looked at yellow wellies. Yeah. And therefore you'll be lumped into potentially people who like outdoors activities, as opposed to specific products, specific times, specific things. So this is a massive change, because the industry that revolves around tracking, data mining, and trend analysis is worth billions, if not trillions of dollars a year. So this change is I think, one of the most significant changes to come on the internet, I would say, pretty much since the Web 2.0, when it went from, when user-generated content became a thing. it feels like a huge shift.
It has real ramifications, I think, especially for e-commerce is the most obvious one, where even small companies at the minute can quite accurately do intelligent things with their kind of cookie data at fairly low cost as well. So something like Google Ads and remarketing, if you're spending a couple of grand a month, you can, fairly effectively retarget to your existing audiences. That's something that's going to shift and change, and that I think small businesses need to really be aware of and start planning for. And I think there's an element here of immediately short term, this might look like quite a disruptive and quite an annoying thing to happen. But long term, I think there are benefits to it. So, well, I mean, what's your take on that in terms of why is it a good thing that they're starting to go away? Is that beneficial, or is it potentially disruptive and dangerous? Or what are your thoughts?
Well, I think there's two sides to the benefit there. There is, from the business point of view, the immediate benefit isn't that clear because there isn't a direct alternative. So it's not like they're saying cookies are going, but over here's the alternative to cookies. They're saying the cookie is going and there isn't anything to replace it, but there is this other sort of maybe might work type thing. Obviously, Google has Google Ads, which is very good, especially for e-commerce, at determining intent. So you don't necessarily need a cookie to work out when someone's ready to buy or when they're researching. However, what I think it means for businesses is that they're going to need to be more receptive to the idea that their business needs to stand out on its own. I think the age of simply buying clicks is probably coming to an end. And I think the age of, well, let's just drop $1,000 on Facebook ads and spam everyone we've ever met and ever will meet with ridiculous ads that everybody hates is coming to an end. So obviously for Google and Facebook, their revenue and business, their entire business revolves around these ads. So they're going to have to come up with another way of doing it. What Google and Facebook have started to do, and this is the cynic in me, they've started to take away a lot of the metrics. So they've started to stop telling you about various things that you used to be able to tell. And all they're doing is training people to get used to having data that's less and less accurate.
Interesting.
So that by the time it gets to the bit where the cookies disappear, you're so used to kind of going, well, I gave Facebook 500 quid. It went into their magical pot and we might have had some customers out of it. And you get comfortable with that for 6 months. All of a sudden, the fact that you can't tell whether they clicked and made that conversion anymore because the cookie's gone doesn't matter anymore because you've been trained out of it. So I don't think yet Facebook and Google have an alternative to it. They're just relying on the shift of business and buying behaviors because the people who are buying the ads don't have any other choice, which is half the reason that the legislation is there, because you're dealing with two big monopolies, right? You don't have if you want to advertise on Instagram and Facebook, you have to go through Meta. There isn't another way of doing it. If you want to advertise on Google, you've got to go through Google. It's just how it is. That's a monopoly. So I think it's starting to me to feel like there are businesses out there with strong YouTube presence, with a massive email newsletter that's opened, with a great conversion rate. Maybe people who are still sending out a magazine or a brochure even and getting great return on that. And I think it's that sort of outside thinking that's really going to help. And this moving away from exact return on investment, clicking and advertising, which is disappearing as we speak.
I think that's the good thing, is it's going to force businesses to start thinking of their customers again and really engaging with them in a more old-fashioned but probably far more successful way, because rather than as you say spending $5,000 on Google ads and waiting for a conversion to come in, you're going to have to really empathize and go, well, actually that customer that we used to have, why were they using Google? What were they searching for? What was the problem? Who were they? What kind of age were they? Where else are they hanging out? Are they in magazines where we can then align accordingly? Are they reading certain articles? Are they hanging out in certain groups or whatever it is? And that's always been the challenge, I think, historically, is businesses, and we did an episode on this before about quick wins, and businesses, because of that training around marketing spend, has been, we want the fastest ROI that we can and make it as big as possible, which is then immediately dehumanizes it and means that you don't actually think about what your service is or does, or kind of why it's trying to why they'd want to buy it in the first place. So I think this return to the slightly more kind of personal, for lack of a better word, marketing approach is, I think, going to be a good thing, and especially, I mean, this goes back to this entire series, but ethical marketing, and I think we've got another episode on this kind of profitability side, but this is brands who embrace this and really understand it and do it well are going to grow as a result, because their marketing is going to be, for lack of a better word, more ethical, but that means it's going to be more aligned to what people want, and therefore completely more financially sustainable and more successful as a result. So I think it's initially it's a bit scary. It's the rug being pulled out from underneath you, but I think there's huge opportunities for brands that lean into it and go, let's really, we know our customer, let's like really do what they want and be where they are, because they've embraced it rather than gone, oh no, our graph's gone down.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the things I always like get really worried about is when someone says that like over a double-digit percentage of their business comes from ads. I'm always thinking like that is risky, because if Google make a move or double the price of the auction or whatever, you're half your business say comes from ads. It's like, wow, that's so risky. So I think if you are in a position where you're spending money on ads right now, and more than double digits of your revenue come from ads, then it's definitely time to find yourself a marketing book and get out there, get the email list going, work out how you can get more referrals, golden tickets, refer a friend, all of this sort of stuff. There's loads out there. So I think there's definitely, as you say, I think this is a really fun opportunity for businesses to really get out there and try something different. And I think although there's going to be a lot of doom and gloom, there's going to be a lot of horror stories coming out, a lot of fear mongering, I think also really it's an opportunity for small brands, it's particularly small businesses, to really come up with some innovative stuff that I think would work really well that big brands just can't compete with. So yeah, I think there'll be some interesting stuff there. So if you are staring down the barrel of having your ads traffic disappear, then do comment, let us know, and we'd love to hear more about your situation, your story, and see if there's some ideas out there, or if you've got a clever idea of something you're doing that's slightly different to ads that you've just started doing, then do let us know in the comments. And as always, if you think there's someone you know who would like to listen or watch to this episode to get them thinking about what they're going to do in 2023, then do send them a link and share it with your colleagues. Brilliant. Excellent. So thanks very much, everybody, for listening and watching.
See you soon.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Let's cut the bullshit. We've got straight up marketing advice. You should use it.
Just drop the job.
Adam and Simon's